Hello. Today I'm going to talk about the new web interface of Global Threat Alerts, formerly known as Cognitive Intelligence or CTA. My name is Alicia García Sastre and I am the Technical Marketing Engineer of Global Threat Alerts. Let's just jump right into it. In order to understand what are the main components of this new web interface and the main outcomes, I'm going to touch on the following topics. First, I'm going to talk about how the alerts are grouped smartly and what are the conditions that make them to be grouped together. Then, I'm going to show you how you can change the priority of the threats that have been seen in your environment and also all the asset groups. And also I want to cover how you can take advantage of all the rich context that we have about every detection. Which assets are involved, how it was detected, and all the information that we have about that threat. In order to understand how alerts are going to be grouped together, we have to visualize that for each alert, we are going to have 3 dimensions of different values that can be assigned to this alert. So our first axis is going to be the threat severity. So the threats related to this alert can have different business priority. They can have low, medium, high, or critical. And also the assets involved in this alert, they could be low, medium, high, or critical. About the suppressed value, we are going to talk later. And lastly, we are going to have assigned to each alert a value for the confidence. This means how sure we are that our detection is correct and you are actually hitting this threat in these specific assets. So we can see here an example of different alerts and how they are ordered in the space related to their 3 dimensions. So what is going to happen is that the alerts are going to be grouped automatically based on the priority of the asset groups. So imagine that we are seeing several threats that are happening for several asset groups. If these asset groups have the same priority and we are seeing all these threats for these 2 asset groups, we are going to be having these threats tied together and grouped in one alert. Let me show you this with a demo because I think it will be easier to see. So here we have the alert dashboard and we can see that we have a summary here of all the alerts. We have some filtering capabilities just to see the alerts that we care about the most. And below the filtering toolbar, we can see all the alerts ordered by criticality. So the most critical alerts are going to be shown at the top and then we go lower on priority. So let's take this first tile, this first alert, and we can see that there is one threat that is happening for 2 different asset groups. And we can see the specific IP addresses inside of these asset groups that are affected. And for both asset groups, that we can see that the asset priority is the same, is medium. One other case here that we can see is that we have several threats that are happening for one specific asset groups. So these are the 2 main groupings that we are gonna see. When we have one alert spanning through different asset groups that have the same business priority, or we have several alerts that are happening for one asset group. It could be several asset groups, but then all the asset groups we have to have the same priority. Bottom line is, if we didn't have this smart grouping, you will see so many alerts for these specific assets. In this case, we would see 9 different alerts if the grouping was not happening because we have 9 different assets that are affected by the same threat, in this case, NJRAT. Okay, so we have seen that the grouping of alerts, it is dependent on the business priority or severity of the threats and asset groups. So there will be some values defined by default for each of these threats and asset groups, but we can go ahead and customize it to our needs. So how can we do that? We go here to the tab that says threats, and you can see that every threat, it is classified into one of the following categories: critical severity, high severity, and so on. And if we focus in one of the threats, we can see that we can change the severity just very easily from this menu and assign it what is proper for our network. And in this case, we prioritize the threats that we care about the most in our organization. In this page, you are going to see all the threats that have been detected in your environment, and also you will see a small summary of it, and how many assets are affected by this threat and how many alerts have been generated. Also, we have here the MITRE category of the alert. And last but not least, we can see here when it was last seen in our organization. If I choose here suppressed for this specific threat, I won't receive any alerts about it. So we have a very similar menu for the asset groups. In this case, the asset groups are going to be automatically imported from the host groups of Secure Network Analytics. So we don't have to do any configuration there. It will just grab the host groups that are configured in Secure Network Analytics. And we can also change here the priority of our asset groups. And one important thing is that we can also suppress specific networks, and this will be very handy in case we want to, for example, not get alerts from our guest wireless, things like this. There will be some host groups that we don't care about, or some network ranges that we don't care about, and in this case we can just go ahead and configure them here. And this is how it will look like. You can put here even individual IPs or whole ranges and so on. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is the rich threat and detection context that we can see on the web interface. So for example, if we take one of the specific alerts like Sality, we can see at a glance what is the risk. We can change here the state of the alert and when it was happening exactly, for how long it was prevalent in our network, and what are the affected assets with their IPs, the usernames, and the asset groups. And we can also see that part of this detection was actually found because we have ETA telemetry, or encrypted traffic analytics telemetry. So if we have a look at more details here of the alert, we can add some notes when we are investigating it. And what I wanted to show you is that we have all the information about the threat condensed here, and also we have here the affected assets. And for each asset, we can see the specific events that were observed in the network, and they made possible to detect Sality in this specific asset. So for example, if we go ahead and check for this specific asset, I have a summary here, but I can go ahead and check more into detail. What were these events? In this case, we can see that there were 4 different security events that were found related to this asset, and they were indicative of Sality. And if you have a closer look, they are all different actually. So for the first one, we can see that it was detected because of passive DNS. So we saw this specific endpoint going to this IP, and because of passive DNS database, we know it was inferred that this IP of external host is related with one specific host name that is indicative of sality. In this case, as I mentioned, we were able to detect sality because we got some special fields from ETI telemetry or encrypted traffic analytics. We wouldn't have gotten this URL if it was not for ETI telemetry. Also, we have here an observation that is because of a classifier, one specific model of machine learning. And in this case, we detected that the URLs that were accessed, they had a very similar pattern to others that are indicative of sality. So this is yet another example of a different way to detect sality. And the last one is based on IOCs, and we know that this specific domain is detected, is related to sality because we have it in our threat intelligence database. So this detection was a combination of multiple engines that are working in parallel, and they are working together to detect threats in your network. And you can see how rich are these security events. They will tell you exactly why we think you are hitting this threat in your network, and this is very important when you are investigating an event, not that you are getting only that some user was related to sality, but why really? We need to know the why, and to see what was the activity that triggered this, to have confidence in the detection. And also to be able to later on maybe include these domains and these IPs on some kind of watch list and do some follow-up actions with this investigation. And also, lastly, you have all the context, but if you want to download all the flows that are related to this specific detection, you can go ahead and do it and have it as a piece of evidence in your investigation. So to wrap up, I wanted to summarize the items that we saw today. We saw how the alerts are grouped smartly in the new web interface, and how you can change and customize your threat and asset group priorities in order to modify the grouping and the priorities, and how you can take advantage of all the rich security context that we have on our detections. So as you can see, this new web interface will make threat hunting and network monitoring easier because it works out of the box. And it provides this flexibility for you to define what is important for you in your network. And also maintaining an industry-specific threat security baseline. With this new grouping of alerts, we will have a single prioritized list of security alerts, and each of these alerts can be taken as a natural unit of work for starting your investigation. So I hope you have enjoyed the video, and I wish you a very nice day. Thank you so much for watching.